I
Yeah.
think because I started talking to some other, some other young women about it, and they were like, Auntie, the problem is that I don't think that I can find someone who fits my physical ideal, but who also has the spiritual grounding that I need. I said, oh, sis, you want a thug and a thobe.
This
And
is it now. This
she
is it.
started
This is it.
laughing. I said, but it's true, right? I said, you want a brother with some swag, who can wear a thobe with some tin,
Oh no.
like his
Poor
beard is
guys, man.
glistening,
I
you
feel
know,
sorry for the brothers, man.
he's got a little swag, and I'm like, you can have that, right? You can have that, but you have to be honest with yourself that that's what you want. You have to be honest with yourself that you want someone who looks a certain way and has a certain level of, like, comportment, how he carries
Finesse.
himself, who's also finesse, who's also spiritual. You have to think about what comes with that, right?
Thank
What
you.
comes with someone who acts like that, but also don't be afraid. Is it the looks that you want, or is it that presence that you want? I really, and this is why I push people to challenge, where's your desire coming from, right? Is
Mm.
this desire chosen for you? Do you really want a thug and a thobe, or is that what society tells you that you want? Is that what society tells you
Mm.
is sexy? Because we talked about women and sexiness, we didn't
Thank
talk
you.
about men and sexiness, right?
Oh,
Well,
please
I don't want a
speak to
cornball
this.
dude. Oh, auntie, I don't want a cornball dude. I said, well, what's a cornball dude? I don't want no quiet, nerdy kind of dude. I said, girl, those are the freaky ones. She said, oh, auntie, you can't say that. I said, but I can. I
You
said, but I
can.
can because I've lived long enough to know. And men talk to me. Men are comfortable
Yeah.
sharing and talking to me.
Mm.
I said, men put up a performance just like women put up a
Mm.
performance. So that man that you think has that swag and has that, he's super cool, he could be extremely self-conscious. He could have very low self-esteem. That
Very
quiet brother,
performative. Mm.
very performative.
Yeah.
That quiet brother who is very studious. He's handsome, like you. And
Mm.
I've had sisters say, there was a couple. They wound up getting married, and she said, Auntie, if we hadn't talked to you, I never would have married him because he wasn't my
So
type.
hard.
He
See?
looked, she said, he's handsome, but he wasn't my type. He was too quiet. He was too this,
Yeah.
he's too that. I said, so how is he now? She's like, well, he
Ooh.
defied my expectations, but this is because our desires that we think come from us, a lot
Thank
of
you.
times these are scripted. It's part of the
Thank you.
programming,
It
isn't it?
is 100%. I am with you 100%. Definitely. I think, and this is a reminder really to all, especially the younger sisters out there, brothers too, if this is you, but just do be careful of that type and that list of, like you said, you want the thug on one side and he needs to be Hafid of Quran. So I have to have both. Just be careful. I think, subhanallah, I had this kind of revelation when I thought to myself, if I was somebody coming up in today's times, right? Because I got married at 22 a long time ago, alhamdulillah. And my husband was introduced to me by a mutual friend at university, and we spoke on the phone initially, and we hit it off right away. And I knew I wanted to get married, and I had already had a few meetings with some brothers who did not quite fit the bill. So when I spoke to him, I was already like, oh wow, we got along really well. And then we had the meeting at the masjid, and I saw him and he smiled. And immediately my heart became like calm, because up until that point I'd been like worried, like, what if I see him and he's butters, like, what if I see him and it's like he just does not fit the bill, blah blah blah. I didn't have a type in my head, but obviously, I'd come from Jahiliyyah, so there was that. But I saw him and he smiled, and immediately I had this kind of sense of calm. When we
Mhm.
sat down to talk, it went really well. And so I used to tell this story where we parted ways, and he went his way and I went my way. And then when he rang afterwards, I said, something like, "It went really well, didn't it?" Like, basically, like, we're doing this. And he was like, "Okay." And I was like, "Yeah, you like me. Like, come on, like this is a thing." But my point is, if I was coming up in today's society, if it was on a dating app, for example, right, or a matrimonial app, or I just had all the programming that we have now, I think I would have swiped left on him,
Mhm.
because again, wasn't the type. He wasn't 6 foot, certainly not
Mhm.
6'2" or anything like that. He didn't fit that frame. He certainly wasn't a thug in a thobe or anything like that. But when I look at it, I think imagine if it had been a situation where I had swipe left on him, everything that happened afterwards, none of it would have happened. The 15 years of marriage, the 5 children, the amazing times, like none of that would have happened if I had judged him according to an ideal type that I had in my head. And I think I just share this, guys, as a reminder, really, for everybody to understand that, like you said, that type in your head, that ideal, is not just something that's innate. It's not something that's coming only from within you. It's a culmination of things, of the programming, of what you've read, of what other people think, and all of these other things. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, don't hold on to it too tightly, because you could miss out on a really, really good thing.
You really can. And you know, and I know brothers who are like that thug in a thobe kind of ideal, and it's performance. They're very, you know, they put on this performance to have a certain level of cool that they don't really have. And other men can pick it out. Other men, you know, can say, no, he's not really who you think he is. And I think that that's why we also have to give each other grace.
Hmm.
We have to give each other grace, and we really have to go in uh, when it comes to seeking out partners as a community, not just as a single person. I always tell
Hmm.
women, have your homegirls met him? Have you
Hmm.
introduced him to your cousin? You know, your male cousin, the one who's a little crazy. Introduce him to him and see what he says, right? You know, for brothers too. Has she met your sisters? You know,
Yeah, yeah.
has she come around your mom? Because you have on one side, you have this, you know, brother who's like, you know, out there, just very swagged out, whatever. And then you have on the sister side, you have the IG model in a hijab
Hmm.
kind of sister,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
You
Yep.
know, and she's all of these things, also suffering from a lot of self-esteem, but she has brothers all in her DMs and things like that.
100%.
You know, give each other grace, but also approach the marriage process not from one extreme or the other. So it's not just the studious, pious brother or sister, and it's not just the one who fulfills all of my, you know, social media led, you know, desirability
Hmm.
characteristics. How can I find someone who's going to make my heart smile when they smile at me? Because I
Hmm.
felt the same way when I first met my husband. Now, I'm 5'11", child. My husband, he's 5'8". He 5'8" on his tall days, but I think he might be 5'7". You know, that's what he said. He say
Mashallah.
5'8". But mashallah, we've been married for 17 years, you know, and I would have, in if I were 23, I wouldn't have talked to him
Hmm.
because I wouldn't have been smart enough to say this person could be my destiny. So that's another thing. And when I looked at him, I had to think about too, this is a good brother, but also do I have a level of desire to want to know more from a carnal level? And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. I think that's okay. And there's a halal way to do it. I think that's what
Yeah.
scares people. They're
I think I
worried that.
yeah, I think what I really liked in those questions that you asked yourself was like the curiosity element, because
Mhm.
I think a lot of people nowadays, we discount people right off the bat. You didn't
Yep.
tick this box, that's it. I don't want to know anymore, right? I'm not
Yep.
interested because you're not this, you're not that, you don't have this, you don't have that, you don't have this. And I
Mhm.
think if you have, like you said, an inkling, firstly, Aslan, it's a good person. Okay, there's a good person there that's come to you, but you have an inkling of, like you said, something that you want to know more about, right? Maybe allowing yourself to be curious enough to not make prejudgments, to not assume that he's not a fit because, well, he doesn't have this and because he doesn't have that, and well, and when I asked him this question, he gave the wrong answer, so it's not a fit. But anyway, may Allah help us all through this process,
You know,
subhanallah.
I always tell sisters like, sis, you know, you might be blocking your blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because he's not the right height, because he's not the right complexion, because his hair is not right, because his beard doesn't connect. You know, sometimes brothers, the beard, it looks like, you know how ground beef, when you make
It's our
ground beef,
African brothers, mashallah. In
the,
Southern
the
Africa, all the men have got the little
listen, they got the little chip,
goes
and
with
then
them.
you know it here is good, like from the chin, they're good, but it's just it's up here, and I'm like, sis, just look past that, because people look at my husband, they're like, oh, mashallah, you know, brother Muhammad is this and he's that. I'm like, but this takes time. You're seeing me and him after 17 years. You should have seen us at 17 months, at 17 days. At a year and 7 months, it doesn't look like this. And that's, I think the level of permanence of commitment is something that we're also afraid of too.
Yep,
We're
100.
afraid of because we, you know, as Muslims, even we don't have a problem getting married, but sometimes we have a problem staying in marriages.